Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello. Would you like to see me? There we go. Welcome to Lead with LeAnn, your definitive guide for exceptional leadership and successful entrepreneurship, airing every week at 2 p.m. Pacific time exclusively on winwinwomen.tv. Live streamers, come on over. The water's warm. Join us live over here where you can actually interact with us as well. I am your host, LeAnn, and I am thrilled to be sharing this journey with you. Each week on Lead with LeAnn, you'll join me as we delve into the inspiring stories of established leaders and innovative entrepreneurs. We'll uncover just what it takes to build a brand from scratch, lead with authority and grace, and turn business aspirations into tangible success. Our show is not only about imparting knowledge, it's about creating a community. It's a space for us to laugh and learn and leap forward together in our quest for professional and personal growth. Whether you're embarking on a new entrepreneurial adventure or looking to inject some fresh energy into an existing one, there will always be insights for you here. So get ready for thought-provoking conversations, enlightening insights, actionable advice, and the support of a network that champions the win-win philosophy. Learn to lead with passion, purpose, and determination right here on Lead with LeAnn. I am so excited today to introduce my guest, Rochel. Don't come yet. Marie Lawson. She is, well, it says RN, but I know that that's I believe a past endeavor. She has a lot more going on these days, so you'll have to find out. But a dynamic entrepreneur and wellness advocate. With over 30 years of experience, she's revolutionized telecom as well as wellness. Not what I expected to see. How about you? As CEO of All Day Cable Inc. and founder of Blissful Living the number 4, you. Host of the Blissful Living Podcast. Woohoo! We love podcasters. And the number 1 international best-selling author. Rochel inspires women to embrace wellness and success. Yay! Welcome to the queen of feeling fabulous. Rochel, are you there?
I
There
am.
she is. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so good
How
to
are you?
I'm well, thank you.
You're
And that's
welcome.
a good thing to tell an RN. Am I correct?
Yes, especially with the emergency room trauma fight nursing background. Yes,
That's right.
very good.
Sometimes I have to get caught up on my memory on all the details. We spoke earlier and you told me that, and I was like, oh, wow, that is so much to do and to go through. And you've had some interesting experiences. Are you still in the trauma rooms?
No, 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 no. I still have my license. I think I will always have my license because my license was hard to get. And then all those certifications behind it as well. But I really do love being a nurse, and I really did love being an ER trauma and fight nurse. It was some of the best times of my life. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
But that's
So I've
not
been
what you're
licensed for
doing.
34 years. So
Wow. Well, how did you get your license when you were like 10? No,
I don't,
like
you
younger
know
than
what?
that.
I wasn't in utero because I'm only 29. So I'm not
That's
really
true.
sure.
That's true. Right, right. I'm like, wait, that doesn't even compute. Okay, excellent. And that led you into other things though, because you're still involved
So
with wellness.
yeah, so how the story goes
Yeah.
is I graduated with an electrical engineering degree and couldn't get hired in Silicon Valley because I was a female. It was in the late 80s. And so I was married and stuff. And so I went, let me go back to school because the electrical engineering degree was my second degree. So let me go back to school. So I went back to school, nursing school, and got the bachelor's of science in nursing and got right into the emergency department. But prior to all of that, I had been on this journey for 17 years with my own health and well-being. And when I got to be in my teens, I started doing these things that were holistic, but I didn't know that they weren't called that in the 70s, right? They were just, yeah. So I was doing some vegetarian stuff and I was, getting massages when I'd saved up my little money and, getting facials and, try just, and stop eating fast food. Probably by the age of 13, I stopped eating fast food. And so, just doing this little stuff. Long story short, years later, I found out that what I was doing was holistic in nature. And so after I got healed, I want to say divine healing, but it was things that I was doing when I was a teen that was put in a sequential sequence for me when I was meditating one day. And I followed that sequence for 9 months and was healed in 9 months without any medications after suffering for 17 years. And so I knew it was power in the holistic medicine. And I later discovered that what I was doing and practicing was a form of Ayurveda. So, of course, what do? I go back to school and get a master's degree as an Ayurvedic nurse practitioner. And then I opened up a spa, which is how Blissful Living for You originally came about.
Got it. Well, okay. So that was a whole lot of stuff.
For
Um,
29, I know.
but let's go back to, okay, one thing that stuck out. You struggled with something you said for 17 years.
Mhm.
And
So,
then you came across what happened?
so what I suffered with was a digestive condition.
Okay.
And by the time I was a nurse, I knew exactly what it was because it was excruciatingly painful. And this condition manifested from four very stressful incidences that I had experienced when I was 8 years old. And
Oh,
now now there's actually a diagnosis called traumatic stress syndrome that they see in children, but they didn't, girl, in the 70s, wasn't nobody looking at stuff like that, right? And
right.
so I would go to the doctor. I probably went to 100 doctors and they couldn't figure out what was wrong, but they would give me a prescription. And after a little while, I just stopped taking the prescription because they weren't working. And so I just, said, well, if I don't eat this today and eat this, maybe I'll feel better and I would feel better. Or if I, meditated, because I'm a person full of fire. So if I meditated, maybe I would be able to just keep myself calm. Of course, type A, perfectionist, A student, athlete, all of that kind of stuff. But these things begin to work. So I started getting massages when I can afford them. And I stopped eating fast food because I put the correlation together that every time I ate fast food, I would be sick, really sick the next day. And that was the one thing that I could pinpoint as to one of the causes that would make me feel really bad the next day. And so it just evolved over time. I was using herbs, reading some books in the library, and I was creating herbal facials. So I never had acne when I was a teen, when I should have had acne, because I was doing these herbal facials and I started doing them on my friend. Had no idea, girl, what I was doing, but I started doing them for my friends, and then they didn't have acne and their skins looked, and it was just this journey, I think, of exposure to things that, I was always a seeker and wanting to learn more about the natural way. And I think finally, when I got to that ripe age of 25,
Mhm.
it's like, okay, you're ready, you're a nurse, you already know what you have, you know the good, the bad, and ugly if you continue on with suffering. While you're sitting here meditate, let me just let you be a conduit for the wisdom I have, because you're already doing it. Let me just put it in a sequence for you. And by that time, it had gotten so bad, LeAnn, that I wanted to take a fire poker and just jab it in my stomach to stop the pain. I thought if I could just open up my gut and allow it to be exposed to cold air, the pain would stop. That's how bad it had gotten. So I was willing to try anything. I'm like, I've been suffering all this time. What is one more thing gonna do? And within weeks, I started feeling better. And then lo and behold, literally it was like I birthed this baby of traumatic stress that had been inside my abdominal cavity for all these years. I birthed it in 9 months and I haven't suffered since. I am on no medications. I feel fabulous. I don't have high blood pressure. I don't have high cholesterol. The doctors are amazed that, like, well, we see your age, but my blood, it's so I just attribute it to, now I can do some, bad things too. Like I have a cocktail and I like wine and, stuff like that. But I know what's going to be beneficial for me and my health and well-being, and keeping my body tight or regulated also helps to keep my mind in
Mhm.
the right space.
So let me just clarify. You said that this process that you followed for 9 months came to you while meditating. And then later you realized you made the correlation between it being a Ayurvedic technique and
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. So this is so funny. You know how when you're seeking something,
yeah,
things will come out, right?
all the
You
time.
could have read the book 100 times, but if you're seeking for some special information in that book, it's going to just be right there, bam, in your face. So this is before computers. So, I'm at the library, okay? Go back way back when, okay? There was no computers, no internet. I mean, I think the latest and greatest technology was a pager at that time. So I was at the library and I was just looking for some books. And I'm a reader, I love books. And I came across this one book. It was in the nursing section, and it had, some information about alternative medicine. So I started reading it, and I got to this one section, and it was Ayurveda, but it was very brief. But the stuff that was in there was some of the stuff I was doing, some of the stuff I was doing. So of course it piqued my curiosity, and I wanted to know more. It's like I wanted to know what was my body type, because the stuff in there was saying that we have three very distinguished body types, and we have combinations of the other two within us, but there's one predominant. So I'm like, body type, what is that? What does this mean? And so the more I started seeking, the more this information came out. And you should see my garage, because I have a ton of nursing books as well. But it opened up just my awareness. And it was kind of like, so I'm Sicilian, I'm Black and Sicilian and Irish, and my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, um, from Houston, Texas, used to like do all these like little herbal remedies and things to soothe my stomach. Like she would give me ginger, and she'd make me like these little ginger cookies, and she would have me do olive oil, take olive oil, and just all kind of herbal stuff like that. And I was just like, okay, grandma, because when she would give it to me, I felt better. And all of that stuff is just part of Ayurveda. So once I found out what my body type was, my dosha, girl, it was on, because then I was able to utilize the wisdom of this holistic medicine, in my well-being, in my mindset, in my businesses. And yeah, so it's been really beautiful.
Wow. Okay then. And I mean, okay, so sorry, I struggle with the
Ayurveda.
Ayurveda. Ayurveda is I mean, it's a something that comes out, I'm thinking India. Is
Yes.
spiritual background behind it as well?
So it's not spiritual or religious in context now. Um, there's no religious quote unquote doctrine,
Uh-huh.
but it is just wisdom of ages. I guess like wisdom that you would take from Buddhism or Catholicism or, anything, but it's not a religion, and there are no specific religious practices. It really is focused on, Ayurveda means the knowledge and science of life. So it really is focused on making sure that the essence, the uniqueness in the universe, learns how to ebb and flow just how you specifically should ebb and flow. So even though people may be the same, quote, predominant dosha, doesn't necessarily mean they're the exact same. And the identical twins, I always say, is identical twins, they don't even have the exact same dosha composition. So it's beautiful. And the other thing I really like, because I'm kind of that little sexy type of girl, is that your uniqueness in our universe as it exists today was created the moment that little egg said yes to that little sperm. Yeah, baby, you can come in and you can help me make this baby. That's when your unique dosha was created. And so that's what makes, I think, so beautiful. Like,
Mm.
it's our connection to the universe beyond what we see or can even imagine, because all of us are comprised of everything that exists in the universe. You think about like when you go to the doctor, they're testing your sodium, your magnesium, your nice, all of that. It's all compositions of the universe. It's just how we're just we're on our own unique recipe.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and in fact, in my favorite book, I'm told that I was known even before I was conceived and born.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it's a true thing. So, um, it's a reason that this information is coming out to us. You know, this is, as they say, the age of Aquarius. And me being an Aquarius, of course, you know, I'm all
Mhm.
in that. But from what I've seen, just, you know, within the last 10 years, last 20 years, heck, the last 40 years, it's been dramatic, you
Last
know.
4.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's
We
been
can talk about
dramatic.
that in a minute. But I do want to touch on, something that you said that relates to what I've found with a lot of people I talk to is a strengths finder. Are you familiar with the concept of strength finder?
Uh-uh.
It's pretty unique. There's a book out there called the Clifton Strengths Finder. You can buy the book, and when you do, then you get a free coupon to do the Strengths Finder test. And the history behind it is fascinating. It actually it tested CEOs. They were looking for, is there like a magic combination of personalities that CEOs have? You're a CEO, I'm a CEO. And the answer
Mm-hmm.
was no, there isn't a magic combination. We don't tend to be born at a particular time of year. We don't tend to have a particular type of smarts, anything. But in doing so, they did identify about 35, I believe, different personalities, different types and strengths, they called them. And so in taking the test, you find out what your top 5 are. And that's
Oh.
fine. Everybody can find their top 5. And when I found my top 5, I was like, oh, that totally makes sense. I'm totally strategic. I'm totally achiever. I'm totally belief in positivity. And there's a fifth one, actually my third, called intellection, which is I love putting pieces of things together in a unique and cool way that makes
Mhm.
sense to a lot of people. And so it totally describes how I am in the world, how I show up in the world. Makes sense.
And
Yeah,
what's
you're
the
right.
book called again? Like
Yep.
Strength Finder?
Strengths Finder 2.0. You can look it up and find it pretty easily. I sometimes go to, even when I had a staff, I would go to the half price bookstore and see if I could find it half price. But you have to look and see, has the code been used already? Because of course the code is only,
Right,
but I would
right.
find unused codes that were available for the half price bookstore. Book's only $15 anyway. It's decent,
Oh,
but
it's not bad. It's not
and you can
wow,
just go
that's
online and
cool.
get it. But I like having the hard copy. Regardless, the point being, if you do you know what factorials are in mathematics? Being a engineering major,
What'd you say?
factorials, factorial,
Yes, yes. I haven't heard that word in a
right?
minute.
In a
In a
minute.
minute.
So 35 factorial. Would that be a modest size number or a massive size number?
Massive.
Massive. Because it means 35 times 34 times 33 times 32 times all the way down. It's a huge number. That's the number of different ways that Strengths Finder could be manifested in people
Oh, wow.
because there's 35 different ways. So, you take the first one out, you have 34 left, you take that one out,
Right,
33 left, and they say
right.
that's greater than the number of people that have ever lived
Oh,
on.
wow.
So like
Wow.
you said, you use the word dosha, but you said we're all so unique.
Yeah,
We are.
yeah.
And even the strengths finder backs that up. The likelihood that there's other people in the nation that have the same top 5 strengths as me is almost none.
Interesting.
And we've got 3 million people in the United States.
Now, you know what? Now I'm really curious. Like,
I'll
ooh,
bet you are. So
yeah,
you got to go
yeah.
find that out and tell me what your
Yeah,
strength.
I'm really curious. My hair is a mess. I'm really curious because now it's like, okay, how does it align with my dosha? You know,
Right.
and the dosha is so the dosha is all about the composition of the elements: air, earth, fire, water, and ether.
Mhm.
So when you take that and then you find out what your strength finders, the top 5 are, it gives you a whole clearer vision of how you ebb and flow, you know, on your path to bliss or how you're supposed to, which is can be so beneficial.
Mhm.
Girl, I'm getting ready to 10 level everything up now because I'm gonna have
So the last 4 years, you brought it up. Life has been different than, I mean, I'm a child of the 80s, you're a child of the 70s. I was born in the 60s,
60s. I was
barely,
born in the
barely.
60s.
I was barely born in the 60s. But I remember mostly the 80s. I remember a few memories of the 70s. And, we didn't have technology. We did play outside. Our moms did call us in when it got dark. Um,
Mm-hmm. Street
we
lights
had,
came on.
although I was more latchkey a little bit. I came home to an empty house and I had to call my mom and let her know I was home. And we had corded phones attached to the wall, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we
And if
do
you got that
this.
25, if you got that 25-foot cord, like when you were a teen, you could be on the
Oh,
phone. The phone
all
was
day.
literally like glued to your head, all of it. You washing dishes, you cleaning the bathroom, you're making the beds. Yeah.
And now if you ask a younger person to pick up a phone, they do this,
Yeah.
theoretically.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a very different world that we're in, but the last 4 years have been exceptionally different, of course. Um, how has it changed your world?
So to be honest, it really hasn't.
Okay,
Okay, and
you
tell
brought
you
it up.
why. Yeah, so um I live part-time in San Antonio area and then part-time in San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh,
But I'm a
nice.
Cali girl, and I've been
Okay.
doing that for, this is my 7th year. My telecom business is in San Jose, and my whole family is in California, in Northern California, Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. Um, so I've just learned to ebb and flow. When I was a little girl, I was the only girl grandchild in my generation.
Mm.
And so I used to be called Princess
Mm-hmm.
for a little bit, then my nickname changed. But when I was asked, Princess, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like two things I said. I want to go to Saint Tropez. Had no idea where Saint Tropez is. I must have heard it on one of those movies from the 50s. And I wanted to be able to work wherever I wanted to work. So fast forward 7 years ago, it was like, okay, I'm gonna back out of my playground because I would say they going to play in the emergency room. I didn't do it full time. At that, it was like I would go work, pull a shift, and I was extremely ecstatic because I pulled a shift. But once I decided to quote unquote retire from clinical practice, I was able to literally work anywhere in the world due to our modern age of Aquarian technology that we now have today. So I could be in Switzerland, I could be in the Bahamas, I could be in Aruba, I could be in Australia, I could be anywhere in the world and
Mhm.
still work and get my work done. So it didn't change for me in that capacity because I was already had prepared for it. Didn't know that I was preparing. The other thing was there was some things that kind of changed. Like it was great to go on the plane and there wasn't that many people on the plane, so I could actually get the whole road to myself. I didn't get COVID at all, and I traveled a lot. I actually came in from Australia back into the country on March 1st,
Mm-hmm.
and California, in New York shut down March 2nd,
Yep.
and then Texas shut down March 8th. And I was sitting next to a gentleman that was coming in from Hong Kong. No mask, we didn't have no mask on. He's coughing and hacking and telling me about how they doing COVID and testing and all this stuff. Pretty sure the dude had COVID, but I didn't get sick. I never got sick.
Oh,
And so for me, it hasn't changed, but the evolution of how we had to do our business processes had to evolve, right?
yeah,
Because people
absolutely.
started working from home, particularly. So what was difficult for wasn't difficult, we adjusted, but what was a challenge is my telecom installation company, we do telecom installation for running voice data and fiber for financial institutions, major financial institutions throughout the state of California, in Washington and Oregon, as well as support the railway system, Amtrak railways from the Mexican border to British Vancouver, Columbia.
Wow.
And so what became interesting is when the financial institutions, you couldn't go to a bank, but they still had these projects that they were working on and needed to get done. It became very strategic as to how the project was being managed. So they would let the first people come in and do their stuff. And they, so it was, instead of all of the guys being out there working on the project, the same time. It was a rolling type of project thing, but things still got done. They still got completed on time. It was just an adjustment that needed to be made. And I think for major corporations, it was an adjustment that needed to be made for a couple reasons. One, they needed to be able to see that you can still operate effectively and efficiently without having everybody in the office. And two, it allowed them to make some strategic adjustments with how they handle situations that came up with, quote unquote, the remote working, or even, parents that stay home because they have their children. It allowed them to make some adjustments with regards to how those policies and procedures were rolling out. Our family member taking care of a sick family member,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And knowing that that person could still get their job completed. So I think it was an evolution of awareness of we can still do it no matter where we are, and things still can get done. However, as you and I both had some technological issues today trying to get on the
Yes,
shuttle,
we did.
if we don't have that big satellite overhead, we're gonna have to make some other adjustments on how we're gonna need to work and get work done. But until that point happens, I think it was, how can I say, it was a graduation from elementary school to middle school, or back in my day, it was junior high school. It
Yeah.
was a graduation of how we needed to live our lives, and how we needed to be able to ebb and flow with the changing tides of what's coming in to our society and what will continue to happen. And it's only going to get more frequent and worse. So it's a
Worse.
wake up for everyone to just be prepared. Yeah.
Okay. But
There.
so on the one hand, I hear you saying, things are more free, we're more flexible. On the other, you use the word worse. I mean, those kind of sound like opposites.
So not to be ominous or anything, but when you can, I'm kind of a visionary, and I have a great imagination, but I'm also a realist, and I can see things before they happen, which is why I was such a that
Oh,
was,
now I can't wait to find
you
out
know,
what your strengths
a
are.
great
You just
nurse,
named two
great
of them.
clinical nurse, right?
Got it.
But I don't think I think people forget that when I became a nurse in what I thought for our generation, the six people born in the 60s, was a first pandemic, which was AIDS. When I became a nurse, people were dying and they didn't even know what AIDS were.
Hmm.
They didn't know what it was. It wasn't until had been a nurse for a few years that they finally figured out what was happening and gave it the name, autoimmune insufficiency syndrome. So I think COVID, it had been so many years, 40 plus years since the advent of AIDS. So I think with COVID, it's a wake up call for all of us to be prepared, be more cognizant with our health and well being. Don't take things for granted in life in general. Pay attention. If someone needs help or you haven't heard someone, reach out to them and see how they're doing. You never know. It's all of those warm, lovely, fuzzy feeling things that we had gotten away from because we were just always on our phone, you know what I mean? And not really engaging in the ebb and flow of life. So um I don't want to say it's not doom and gloom. It's actually really good for us to be more cognizant and more aware. Now, when something happens, like with RSV last year, people were paying more attention. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
They're paying more attention to the things to help circumvent illness coming into their household and being protective of themselves when they go out during cold and flu season, because that's when stuff happens. So
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. Very, very cool. Yeah. Well, I have a background in alternative wellness as well. And, we studied, uh, differently, but, also in depth. And we were in the early 2000s, we were one of the first companies to sell supplements. And everybody thought, oh, that's just crazy. That's just expensive pee. And I'm like, no, no, we really need some of this stuff. And indeed, we find out more and more. I was just on a call recently and they talked about that vitamin D is actually not just a vitamin, but an actual hormone that's developed in our bodies. You probably can speak to this better than I can. But we really truly need that. And again, all of our systems are unique. My cat taking a nap over there. Um, produces all the vitamin C he needs automatically. He doesn't need to take the supplement, but we do. And if
Mm-hmm.
we don't, there are real ramifications to being D or C deficient in
Yeah.
our bodies. And so we have to pay attention to those things. And many people aren't. Um, I think of I'm not gonna name a particular thing, but people that have certain conditions of their skin and there is a certain medication being promoted out there for it. And the cost is $20,000 a dose. $20,000 a dose. And yet,
That
and
surprised
then
me.
you wonder why there's so many commercials. And I'm thinking, if I've got itchy skin, I'm taking more omega-3s.
Mm-hmm.
Let's eat more fish.
Yeah.
And I actually mentioned that to somebody who was really suffering. I said, "Well, when is the last time you had some salmon?" "Oh, I don't like fish." And I'm like, "Okay, how about, you know, other oily any fish at all?" "No,
Right.
I never
Right.
eat fish. I never touch fish." And I'm like, and you know, not saying, but saying, maybe there's a
Mm-hmm.
connection between these two
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people really need to start going back to some of the source of where does this come from?
Yep. I'm in total agreement with you. And
$80,000 a year. That's more than many people make on 4 doses of medication to cure something in your skin. Again,
here,
crazy.
I got something else. I know there's another medication out there for urticaria, which is itching of the skin and
Okay.
spontaneous hives.
Uh,
And when you've been diagnosed to have this condition, but they haven't diagnosed, they can't figure out the source. Okay.
yeah, I actually
It-
suffered from that, from something
yeah.
like that for a while.
So this medication is $1,500 a dose, and you have to take it monthly for a year.
Mm, yeah,
Now, who can afford that?
1,500 a month.
1,500, that's like $18,000 a year for a medication. And generally, the population that suffers the most is the ones that don't have that type of care. In fact, I don't know any health plan that covers that. You know what I mean?
Right.
It may
Yeah.
cover part of it, partial, but and so that's a whole nother girl. I
Yeah.
can go, it's a whole nother top that will just send me down a loop.
Uh,
But it's pretty sad. And that's why it's
yeah.
so important to be cognizant of some natural things that you can do
Yeah.
to help prevent illness and disease. Simple things like peppermint oil, pepper,
Right.
eucalyptus oil for your respiratory system.
Yeah.
Simple little things like that. Of course, going outside, you can't buy the vitamin D, go outside and sit outside for 15 minutes.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
simple little, you can walk by yourself, you can still get the exercise in. You don't have to go 25 miles, but you can go, up
Yeah.
the block and back. You can walk by. So simple little things like that is gonna, do a lot to keep you healthy and well. Um,
100%.
because you don't want to get on the pharmaceuticals because then
Yeah.
you might as well just open up your purse and your bank account and be like, just take it because it gets to
Yeah.
be pretty expensive.
So I'll share my newest find this week. Was we eat a lot of broccoli. We do eat a lot of broccoli and we steam it mostly. I'm
Mhm.
not going to eat a lot of raw, although I'll eat raw broccoli too. But if you steam it, that's a little bit better than boiling it. But
Mhm.
there's a particular aspect of broccoli that's really good for us. And when you steam it, or worse, a lot of it evaporates or kind of goes away, but it can be reactivated, I learned, if you crush mustard seed, whole mustard seed, crush a little
Oh,
bit, half a teaspoon, crush it, sprinkle it over the broccoli, and it reactivates the very best part of what broccoli gives our body. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to try that out. I haven't actually had a chance to
I'm gonna
yet.
have to try that out too
I
because
know,
I love
broccoli.
I
So
love
broccoli
broccoli.
and yeah, and mustard seed. I have no problem with mustard seed. That sounds great.
Love mustard, but I love mustard, so the
Yeah,
seed is
so we're
just as
good.
yummy.
I'm really
Yeah.
excited to try this, and I don't know all the technical language with it all, but it looked really interesting.
Mhm. Sounds
So,
good. After,
but on top of it, if you want to forego all that, anybody who's out there going, ew, broccoli, ick, it's so healthy for you. There's more protein and vitamin C in broccoli than you can even believe. There's really is.
And
But
it's a good
go.
roughage, so it helps to keep your colon
Yep.
smoothed out
Lots of
naturally,
fiber.
so you don't have those issues as well. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, so much good. And broccoli sprouts have 500 times more of the same thing that you can get with the broccoli and mustard seeds.
Mm.
So broccoli sprouts. So I am at this moment growing broccoli sprouts for the first
Mm.
time in my kitchen.
You'll have to keep us posted on that because
You know,
that just sounds, ooh, broccoli sprouts, 500. Wow.
500 times more of this, whatever, benefit that broccoli provides
Broccoli
for us
has.
just by getting the broccoli sprouts. So I'm like, okay,
Wow.
down with it. You know what? Anything natural that we can do is
Oh
going
my
to be good.
gosh.
But we're both businesswomen. And
Mm-hmm.
look at us. We're all into our foods and our natural
Mm-hmm.
and our walks
Look at
and
our
gardening.
skin. It's
And look at our
glowing.
skin,
We have
right?
no wrinkles.
Yep.
Business women.
Because when I asked, when we talked about getting together, I asked you for three takeaways, and the ones that you mentioned were quite different than our conversation has gone thus far. So I'm going to hit on those as well.
Okay.
But you mentioned the power of being in a bold, unstoppable community. So speak to that along with, what you've shared about your journey today.
So, when I was a little girl,
Hmm.
I had a mouth. I still do. And so when I was asked these questions, I just said it. I didn't say it with any kind of malice or any kind of, any kind of way. But I would just say it and I would get in trouble because of the way I said it. Not what I said, but with the way I said it. But I knew that what I was saying was right, and I never apologized for what I said. I just was like, I would just get popped in the mouth because of how I said it. So when I started my telecom business, first, and that led me to be really pretty shy. Like if I didn't know you, I wouldn't talk to you. But if you were like my cousins or something, I'm all day long, I'm talking and trying to be tough like the boys, right? But it actually made me get in trouble in speaking my truth, made me shy.
Yeah.
So when I started, so I couldn't public speak, I couldn't do any of this. I mean, I could read in class, but because those were my friends, my classmates were my friends. But other than that, I would have never been able to even do this show. And so
Mhm.
when I started my telecom company, woman owned, minority owned, and a male dominated industry, and the first one in the United States, it was a good old boys network because we're a subcontractor to the construction industry.
Mhm.
And I knew sitting in my office, me and the guys, because I was the only female employee at the time, me and the guys, I knew that I was going to come to a point where I'm gonna hit, say, like a roadblock because I don't know what to do. And that happened. That happened for me. And when that happened, I realized that I don't know. First of all, I didn't know how to run a business when I started it. It just happened to grow really fast and become really successful. And, and two, I didn't have anything that I should have had in alignment in place. No corporate attorney, no bookkeeper, no accountant, none of that kind of stuff. And so I was at the bank after having a traumatic experience where my tax people, let me just say, our nice governmental folks came in and played around with my account a little bit. And so I'm having a meeting with my personal banker. She gives me a magazine, and in the magazine, there's this organization, and she says, "You need to go to this organization." And I was like, no, because that's gonna, I'm gonna have to get out and talk and tell them what I do. And long story short, I went to the organization, was the National Association of Women Business Owners.
Yeah.
And there I was able to establish, I realized I was in my community. There were other women entrepreneurs that would killing it way bigger than I ever could have imagined. And I was making connections with women that wanted to help me grow my business. And from these connections, there became these fabulous collaborations. And long story short is I went from being this shy, kind of not soft spoken, but this shy, in the cut, trying to not be really seen person to becoming the president of that organization and growing that organization from 65 members to 285 members.
Look at you go.
And
Wow.
being able to speak in front of thousands of people in Silicon Valley for our yearly event, and being able to become one of the top 50 women-owned businesses in Silicon Valley.
Wow.
On a list of these women were killing it. I mean, at that time there was the first time I was on the list, there was a lady, an Asian woman that had a company, and she was making $800 million, and this was before 2000.
Wow.
So I can imagine what she's doing now. But I had access to women like her that saw things that I didn't even know that I needed in my business, and saw things that I didn't recognize in myself, and were able to make connections for me to people that I needed to strategically be connected. A great corporate attorney, an accountant, bookkeeper, all those kind of things, and more. And it allowed me to really enhance the essence of being a CEO. I'm a visionary. I see things before they happen. I can see trends and all of that. But if I didn't have those pieces in place because I joined that community, my business would not have been sustainable through every type of economy we've had since
Wow.
1990. And so that's why I say, being in a bold, unstoppable community allows women to be great, to share their greatness without being apologetic for it. You see, when I went to that first networking event as that entrepreneur in the male-dominated industry, I went to a construction event. It was all guys. And they're asking me questions, and I'm kind of feeling myself because I think they're really interested. Well, they weren't. They told me, one of the guys leaned in and said, who do you think you are coming in to play in the Good Old Boys Network? And then another one said, we're going to do everything possible to make sure you are out of business in 2 years. And I sat back and realized, one, I was in the wrong community because I was the only female at the meeting, other than the girl taking the tickets to get in the door. And two, they don't know who they're dealing with, because I'm sitting here quiet, but I'm this bold, unstoppable little girl that will speak my truth. I'm just not going to speak it in this room with all these boys that I don't know. But as my business grew, and as I got out there, and I started my second business, I realized that I was trying to be apologetic and unseen at that moment. And we should never, as women, standing in our greatness, ever be apologetic for being bold and unstoppable, because that is our gift. It's a gift of divine instilled in us to serve and do our purpose. And so when you're in that community, a community of women like that, they see things in you that you can't see, and they can help you to get to places that you don't even know you need to get to. And
Yeah.
so it's a beautiful, beautiful essence. And so that's why I say it's just powerful to be in a bold, unstoppable community, because when you're in that community, you have permission to do and be as bad as you want to be, and you don't have to apologize for it. And when I say bad, I mean it in, good way, like a Beyonce type of bad,
Beyonce bad.
like, yeah, yeah.
Well, hey, we are having so much fun. We rolled way past our normal 30 minutes, so
Oh,
we're going to keep going. No, we're going to keep going with because we both set aside more time to take questions. So anybody on the live streaming or here in our audience, if you have questions, you can put them in our chat. If you're on the live streaming, come on over to winwinwomen.tv. You can still join this conversation. Ask this amazing woman any question that might be popping up in your head. I know I have been, and I'd love to have you over here. We are going to wrap up in a moment, though, so we can take those questions privately. So come on over, winwinwomen.tv. And to that point, you mentioned a bold community. This is another one where we have hundreds of women that are doing shows just like this every single week. I'm closing in on my first year. Woo woo. And right. And I know you have a podcast. So tell us about that. And then I'm going to hit on your other 2 points as well before we wrap up here.
so I've had a podcast since 2010.
Woohoo.
And yeah, and it's called the Blissful Living Podcast, of course. And I focus on the topics of wellness, wisdom, and wealth. And it really seems like it's a community of women and men, because I've had some of everybody from no names to celebrities on my show over those last, it's been 14 years, so it's been a while. But just love sharing, have people come on and share their wisdom about any of those, categories, which I can fit pretty much anybody into and extrapolate, I like to say, some juice out of them that fits that particular category that we've decided that they would go in. So yeah, the Blissful Living Podcast is, everywhere. I have a YouTube channel. Probably gets about 45,000 views a month. That's not a lot, but at least the message is getting out there. And there's one more thing that I want to share. I do hold events called the Brave, Bold, Unstoppable Women Summits around the US.
Saw
And
that.
just
Yeah.
finished my last one in San Francisco on February 3rd. But part of that is collecting and inviting and embracing our women veterans. They're unseen, they're not heard. I spent time in San Antonio, made me realize I've got nieces that served in the military, and I've got a really good friend. It's the first African American female combat pilot. I got another friend that flew helicopters. We don't hear their stories and we don't see them, but they need our support. So my events are all inclusive about, in order for us women to come together and be the change agents, to be those brave, bold, and unstoppable women and take our movement around the world so we can make the world a better place. We can't leave any woman behind with, with that effort to do that. So
Right. Wonderful.
yeah, that's me pretty
Yeah.
much.
So
There's
check out
more,
and
but
you
we
can
need a
find
whole
that
other show
on
for that.
her website. I know you have a website called Blissful Living number 4, letter U. Yeah, we both did it. Yay. Um, .com. And I know you have a free gift on there for our guests that they can check that out. Um, yeah, I
Also,
mean,
the dosha quiz on there. So if anybody wants to find out their dosha,
Dosha
you can take
quiz.
the dosha quiz, and then you get all kind of information that is unique to your predominant dosha that will help you as we embark together on this journey of, being physically fit, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually well balanced, and well-beings, I guess.
How often do you drop your podcast? How often?
Once a week.
Once a week. That's a
Yeah.
lot. It is a lot to do a weekly. Oh, good.
Yes.
We'll check that out.
I have help. So
3 things. The other 2 points that you mentioned, you really have already touched on in sharing your story about the community, but you said why connection is key to building and expanding your empire, which truly comes back to, the connection that you found, it sounded to me, with that group of women and what you were able to develop there. Anything quickly that you wanted to add on to that? Or, I mean, it sounded like you
um,
covered it fairly well.
yeah, I think, I mean, that was one community I talked about, but if you really want to have someone help you,
Yeah.
you got to deeply connect. And
Yeah.
when you deeply connect with someone, they'll go out of their way to do whatever it is that you need them to do, or you would like assistance with. And so it doesn't matter what community you're in, join a community and strive to make deep, impactful connections. Don't strive to get something out of it that's going to benefit you, because it won't happen. But if you put the effort and make those impactful, necessary thoughts in your head to be as connected and really engage and understand and want to learn what the other women do in the community, you will go so much further, and it will be golden for you to build and sustain, build and have a sustainable business such as what I've created with my two. But it's very, very powerful. But a lot of times women and men will join a community and they're right away trying to get business. It won't work, because you'll get ostracized. Build that connection first, and then the business, you'll be having to say, you have to turn away business away, because the connections are so deep.
Absolutely. And just finished reading the Referral of a Lifetime, originally written in 2003. It's been rewritten to include some social media references and so forth. But that's really what he says. He said, everything you need, you have in the connections you already have. You just need to let them make sure they know what you do, make
Mhm.
sure that you've treated them well, and make sure they know that any referral they send you, you will treat well. And if you have that trust built up, which is exactly what you're saying, this connection, trust, built up, you're right. You'll never run out. The referral of a lifetime isn't about prospecting. It's
Right.
about finding and developing deep connections, which is exactly what I strive to do here. Also on Lead with LeAnn. So wonderful.
Love it.
Wonderful. The third point that you mentioned was how the gift of collaboration unlocks the unlimited possibilities in business and life. And again, collaboration, you know, you've now been on my podcast, you've shared generously with this audience. And that's a form of collaboration. And did you want to add to that?
Yeah. So, I always have these stories, but
Yeah.
with the telecom business, when I joined that first community, there was a lady that did cubicle installations, and we were trying to get into more corporate realty. Well,
Yes.
I shared what we did. We were always following behind the cubicle installation people and putting in the wiring and stuff. But just by us doing that and having that deep connection, it led to a collaboration of me getting access to her customers and her getting access to the large financial institutions we
Yeah.
did. And, I don't want to say the rest is history, but it is. She ended up retiring years ago. But it was really another avenue that helped me to get my business recognized as one of the top 50 women-owned businesses in Silicon Valley, because it was all, you had to send in your stuff, and they had the accounting, the Price Waterhouse had to, certify it. And so it was a really big deal, but that collaboration just was a win-win for both of us.
Hmm.
And there were many, many more like that throughout some of the other organizations I've been in, as well as National Association of Women Business Owners. The thing about it is, when you have that access, you go from being 1 or 5 to 10 or 100.
Yeah.
And that, my friends, is what opens up the unlimited possibilities, because you become vast instead of just specific. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
I hear you saying, and this is taught in many arenas. I come from a background with BNI, as we talked about our spheres, and what a sphere is what a collection of like businesses, or at least maybe different businesses that have a like. We call them avatars these days, don't we? There's a specific type of person or group that all those businesses want to work with, but they work with them in different ways. For instance, a realtor, an insurance agent, a financial planner, these are all people that typically want to work with homeowners, right?
Right, right.
Because they're the ones that need the most insurance. They're the ones that most likely have some finance to plan and so forth. And
Yep,
so,
that's
but
true.
likewise, there's many other avatars in the world, and we all have ours that we work with. But that's a form also of collaboration, as you've talked about.
Mhm,
Yeah, find those
mhm.
other businesses that can do the same thing. My final question that I ask everybody, but you've already answered it again, which I love, by the way, is, when you were little, when you were 8, 9 years old, what did you play? What did you imagine? And being the visionary that you were, it sounds like you played and imagined exactly what you've turned into. Have you visited that one place that you said you were going to go someday?
Oh, yes. So,
Okay.
I get mad and be like, I'm just gonna go to Saint Tropez. I get in trouble and I go to my room. I'm going to Saint Tropez. Whatever. It was always when I was upset. So in 2017, my fabulous boyfriend took me on a trip to Avignon and the French Riviera, but I didn't know this. I didn't know. So we coming up and we're driving and it's beautiful, and all that good stuff. And we come up and I'm like, Saint Tropez. And I got as giddy as a little girl, and he was looking like, what the heck is going on with you? And I told him the story how when I was upset or I was mad at the boys or mad at my mom or whoever, I'm just gonna go to Saint Tropez. And if I was like Bewitched, I would have zapped myself there to Saint Tropez. But I had never been there and had no idea where it was. So I get out and I get out the car and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm in Saint Tropez. So yes, I did get to Saint Tropez and I'm going back. But it was like, it was almost, you, as you can tell, like it's so like it was so so beautiful because one, he never knew. I mean, he never knew about the story or anything. We were, dating for a little while, but I wasn't sharing that kind of stuff with him, you know what I mean? And then two, I had no idea where Santa Pay
I
was, but
totally
I
thought
talked to
that
him.
he was surprising you by bringing you.
No, he had no. So it was like a big surprise to him and a huge surprise to me. And it just, yeah, it was just it was, then I know he's a
Wow.
special guy because he must have, but no one knew because once I grew up, it wasn't like in my radar. It's like get that business going, raise those kids, what I mean, do all the responsible things. And I
Wow.
did travel, but and so yeah, I got to say something.
Wow. That is the best. That is one of the most clear what I did and where I mean I get those stories and there's such an
Attraction,
openness
law
and
of attraction.
love.
I mean, it didn't happen, it
That's
took a couple
special.
decades to do, but I think I put it out there so intensely when I was that little girl, you
Yeah.
know, that, I forgot all about it and that energy was still floating out there like, the universe is
Oh, you
that
put it
out
out
there.
there. That is so cool. Yeah, I love the stories of how who we were in those single digit ages so often shows up in who we are today, no matter what age we are.
Yeah.
But that was amazing. So we have to close up here, but how can people
Okay.
find you on social media? What's the best way to
I'm
find you besides your
everywhere.
website?
Yeah. Facebook, Rochel Lawson, Instagram, Rochel Lawson. You can Google me. You'll see everywhere. Just put my name in. Um, yeah, I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, uh, Twitter X, but who goes there? My podcast, YouTube, definitely YouTube. You can put in the Queen of Feeling Fabulous or Rochel Marie Lawson. Yeah, you'll find me. You'll find me for
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. I so appreciate you.
Oh,
And
thank you.
this is a very special and long um, version of Lead with LeAnn. Thanks to our audience and to our watchers later. Again, my name is LeAnn Lyon, host of Lead with LeAnn, here every Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Come on back. We always have fabulous people, but Rochelle, this was so much fun. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.